Good morning, Ron.
Good afternoon, Aristo.
Okay. You're starting to cut out again, and it's really weird because as we did the preliminaries, everything was fine, but as soon as we start getting into some kind of conversation, it starts to cut out. But I think, let's continue and see how it goes. You were talking about going to a Reiki treatment and laying down, and I can understand how they sense things. Basically, they have a tingle, a flow of energy. And if that flow of energy is disrupted, according to them, in a certain way, then they interpret that as things being shut down. So they told you that all 7 chakras were shut down.
And they what are you doing? Well, I've been in more of a fear mode, which is a contract because of the threat to my house and the fact that things are, as I said in the video that's airing today, the thing with Swiss Indo seems to be, it's not totally stalled, but there's definitely people, America, Mr. Chino said America is trying to stop the release of the prosperity funds to the world. And he specifically said America, not Europe, but America. And I had thought the problem was in Europe, the home of the central banks, the world's central banks. But maybe that's not the case, and I don't have all the answers there. But in any case, I'm feeling extremely vulnerable in regard to my home because from past experience, the courts ignore everything that I do. So it doesn't matter how strong my remedy is, how much aligned with the law it is, they simply choose to ignore it. And someone who used to live in Brevard and moved to a different part of the U.S. said that Brevard County is owned by the, it's definitely a good old boys network here. And someone asked, why would they be coming after you so often? Probably doesn't have anything to video.
The thing is, you're still here. I mean, they came after you, 3 times already?
July 2005. They've never had a mortgage on this property. Never. They've never had a trial. They've never had a foreclosure hearing. Meanwhile, I've been doing things like the UCC-1, where I became a secured party creditor and took control of my crop, including my all caps name in the UCC-1 filing, and then I claimed ownership through the filing and bringing up the land patent, which are a land patent when it's updated is out of the jurisdiction of any local court. So they happen in the federal, which I don't trust anymore. I trust, but at least it's out of it. Or court.
I mean, what I've observed, what I've observed is that, and you're cutting out, so I'm extrapolating basically what you said, is that you've been engaged with the courts for quite a long time, and you've been to this place of fear and threat and whatever before, and each time your determination, got you through somehow. So something's at work here. I mean, for me, if they wanted to take your house and that was their intention, or if they thought they could get away with it, because they don't want to make too many waves, in my opinion. Otherwise, they would have taken everybody's house and screw them. They threaten that all the time. They would have taken 10% of the houses at least, as far as what they're doing. They're not taking people's houses that much. It's just enough. When you engage in a war, you don't kill everybody. You wound 1 out of 5 people, so the other 4 can carry the 5th person, and that way you incapacitate 5 people by wounding 1. So if you take 1 house, then the whole neighborhood is freaked out. And if even they approach 1 person with the threat of taking their house, then that person is incapacitated. So for me, it's just like the collective situation with Ukraine and all of that. The idea is to generate fear, dissent, in the sense of incapacitation, paralysis. Again, from my opinion, if you just approach any given situation today from the outside, only from the outside and rationally given with the givens of the matrix, there's no way around it. I mean, everything's designed for complete defeat. You can say, somebody might say they can take your house. If they don't take it today, they'll take it tomorrow, or they'll kill us later, or they'll do this, they'll do that. What can we do aside from all the other things? The legality, as you say, makes no difference if they're criminals. However, any kind of exchange is an energy interaction, like the love line, for example. A pragmatist might tell you, well, aside from feeling better, what the hell use is the love line? Why would you do it except to pat yourself on the back or feel better? Well, it makes a difference in your life and in the way you relate to all of your problems and the way that your problems relate to you. For example, when you went to the judge the first time, you expressed humanity and brought out the humanity of the judge, and that mitigated the situation somewhat. It had influence. And then, of course, the psychopaths respond to all of that because they don't want to lose control. But aside from that, the attitude of embracing the pain body, because I believe Eckhart Tolle, he's, on the surface, what he's saying is basically taking things one step beyond even the medical profession. If you have the flu, the medical profession gives you a painkiller and tells you to rest and recuperate. However, Toll seems to say, take the painkiller and go back to work. Ignore that anything is even going on and just focus on your work. Whereas transformation says that, well, you need to open up to the pain itself. That's the only way you can heal. However, there is such a thing as what you might call a judgment body, the conditioning that violates the sensitive receptors that Toll calls the pain body. Basically, if there is something inside that's a program, a judgment in the sense of a mental pattern or conviction or reality frame that basically says, well, you're screwed. You know, whatever you're going to do, you're screwed. So there's no way your sensitive receptors can heal them because they're constantly interfered with these thoughts that tell them they're screwed. They're repressed and they're not allowed to move. This is what the psychopaths are doing. The psychopaths deny their own pain, deny their own emotions most of the time, except in using them as a weapon of some sort, and focus on mental things, on illuminous things, on programs, on information bits, on basically how to control the living matrix of the life force. The living matrix of the life force is also receptive. When you enter the love line, you enter into a receptive state with another person and share your pain bodies. But they're not pain bodies. That's a judgment. That's a judgment. They're basically your receptor bodies, your life receptor, your life sensors. And if your life sensors are in pain, there's an affliction, and they're getting you. I mean, it's like calling your nerves pain centers. They're not pain centers. They're also pleasure centers. You know, they say that in the brain there's a pain center and a pleasure center and all that, but that's an evaluation processing dynamic of the nervous system. Pain, neurologically, pain travels far slower than pleasure through the nerves. It has not a lower frequency, but it's more sluggish. It basically denies life. Pain is the message that says life is being denied here. Life is being repressed here. Life is not being allowed to flow here. So in order to open up the flows of life, you have to access them. So what I see that you're doing in your videos, and what I believe many people do not see, is that you are attempting on some level to engage in a love line with your audience. When you speak your heart and the so-called pain comes out, that's a kind of love line. Yes, it's one way. And when you asked me, well, are you ready to take this? Well, I was, yes, I have no problem with it because we can express this. I mean, why? But the one thing I did feel that wasn't necessary was, well, if these emotions are attached to conclusions, because like we said, we don't know. You don't know if they're going to take your house or if they won't take, or if they will or won't or whatever, which is a good thing because it leaves things open-ended. So from that reality frame, if we heal the emotions surrounding the situation, it's not going to change things as a day or night, but gradually a strength is going to come back. And that strength takes you to a place of greater spiritual opening closer to the top of the mountain so that those receptors can receive greater light. And as they do, the situation changes. The reason that the environment reacts more than, because basically, again, in my opinion, they would say, look, if you just leave well enough alone, just shut up or talk about New Age stuff and whatever, we're going to leave you alone. Get the message, so to speak. We're going to, and then we're going to, and if you act scared and if you get people upset or whatever, from a judgment point of view, we'll leave you alone. But if you tap into things that disrupt our own process in some way, if our little computer tells us that, okay, this area, that area, or whatever is being disrupted because of some kind of behavior of people. The people are getting too uppity, not by going to the streets, but by becoming confident and inspiring other people. Then one of our agents has to do what they're paid to do, to basically shut you down, to scare you. And if need be, to make an example of you. But examples are dangerous. Examples can actually become public and get people even more riled up. So again, if we look at the level of causality, you go into something like the love line, and it has a basic piece of wisdom. When you share and circulate, and then not just say, this is your pain and this is my pain, but there's also that bridge between them that connects them into a greater system of experience, of feeling the truth of the situation. The pain body, it's not an object, it's an act. Pain is an act, it's a verb. So when we take the pain and accept the message, then what carries the pain, it can heal. Healing occurs bit by bit, and we've experienced this. I believe we need to activate our memories of day-to-day events and notice the details of when things got better, when things got worse. The observation needs to be functional in the sense of, feeding back into our own process to make our process better. So telling the truth is the first step, and then feeling the impact of the truth at the same time. If your audience can take advantage of the situation, they can do much healing, because you're not just expressing your own personal pain and situation. Nobody is. When somebody says, please heal me, I have a problem, you're not really healing them in isolation. They are expressing a common pain. We all have this. And I'm not just saying this theoretically. When I listen to your videos and see you, and when you express the emotion, I feel it in myself. This is very, very disturbing, because my mind tells me, well, you got enough on your plate, you got your own stuff, you got everybody else. Well, I'm very empathic, I'm open to everybody else, and the only way I'm not going insane is because I accept it as a global environmental situation. And if I can heal my personal pain, all of a sudden I'm confronted with this, it's here again. No, it's not here again. This is the next step. Healing your personal pain. And you go through a phase of things being all right, and then it starts up again. That generally means that you're just being confronted with a greater field that's asking for your help. And so you carry that pain and you communicate it, but at the same time, you're inspiring people for the opportunity of accepting the situation, because the pain is never alone. We also have our inspiration. Anybody, and that's not just the top of the mountain, it's anything beautiful in our lives. Very few of us can actually go out and say, well, I've never had a beautiful experience ever. I've never loved anything. I've never aspired to anything. Nothing has ever made me feel good. All of us have something, although it's easy to forget. That is our relative and local top of the mountain experience. And if you feel that you need to meditate or to do mantras or to do whatever, however far it takes you, my comment last week wasn't to shoot down mantras or the person expressing that. It was basically to say, look, these things will take you so far unless you do the work, and most people may not be inclined to do this kind of work. That's all. So when you do express your pain, I urge the listeners to engage in a one-way love line with you, to basically open up their hearts and know that you're not shooting out some personal pain, and you're not judging people, and you're not even judging God. When you were saying, well, God must be, a real dickhead to keep doing this, I wasn't seeing a judgment again, even though that may trigger people, that could trigger me in the background. It may be there. That wasn't the substance. I could just take it and separate it and say, look, man, this is a cry of distress. This is a cry of distress. And if you want God to hear it, you have to open up your heart to the divine in any way you know it, to what your own spiritual ideal is, and listen from that perspective. And that means, because if God hears your prayer, God is going to feel your pain. You're asking God to basically feel with you compassion. You're not asking God to take it away from you. So the immediate result of pain, of prayer, is not a painkiller. It's compassion. And compassion circulates. If you feel a reply of compassion from your prayer, if you feel at some point, it may lead to upliftment, or it may just lead to more tears. But, the tears become, there's hope, there's something else. Then God is with you. And it doesn't mean that the immediate solution is coming. What will happen more likely is that the psychopaths are going to freak out from whatever their own crazy, it's hard for us to understand it. Because we don't know what the shadow is like without some kind of some kind of sanity. We can experience the shadows, but there's a little bit of sanity in each of us, or a lot of sanity, it depends. But to have the shadow all alone is something foreign. So the logic of the shadow, as much as the culture bandies it about, the real mindset is basically practically alien to us. So, however, these, from my observations, people like this have their own style of intuition, their own way of responding to things, and it's almost occult in nature. It's almost a response of a shaman or a mystic. They have their own psychic-like attributes that the shadow provides them because of its desire to survive in its own way and to control. These things most people cannot understand, plus the psychos are conditioned in a certain way, but they're not conditioned as we are because they're behind the matrix condition. And yet they have their own type of condition. And that's difficult. But that's beside the point. What we need to do is basically take the shadow in, but not alone. And we need to filter the judgments out of the shadow. That means filter the conclusions that they're telling us that we're going to take your house. Yeah, threats. Nobody likes them. I hate threats. They make me feel like crap. But the feeling that like crap is one thing. It's an energy. And the actual judgment itself as a conclusion is something I can set aside for now. And that's where I say, okay, God, take this. This is what I want you to take. I don't want us to co-experience this judgment, this reality frame. I'm going to focus on the feeling, and I'm going to do whatever I do, legal or otherwise, as a ritual act, in a sense, of expressing my own movement toward acceptance and healing. To infuse all the documents. I don't know about the form and the lettering and how this should be done. I think that's secondary. My thing is to infuse every action with the energy of your intention. If you're using a pen to feel that energy come out your hand and go into the paper and say, this is my intention. My intention is to be part of this healing, to integrate this. I will accept the shadow that these assholes represent, because once I accept it, they have nothing. They can work on nothing, and they're being impoverished. Just as they try to impoverish us, what we take from them is really the shadow. And then you have the thing on the global scale. I cannot see how there's a difference between Americans and Europeans. I can see how there's factionalism between America and Europe, and perhaps there's some bureaucratic imposition because of a power play. Sometimes when somebody tries to come in, and if they want to do the right thing, the psychopathic circle can fragment into two groups and view this as an opportunity for one group to take advantage over the other group. So something like this may be going on. This is Byzantine politics. Anybody who knows history and how the Roman, Empire worked, and how the Byzantine Empire worked, how the courts work, can understand at least this is how these politics work. For the policy making, policing, politics, the police, the how to control the group control. So all our actions on a political scale are actions and reactions of group control, at least as far as the matrix is concerned. So my suggestion is simply to take a step back and put things into perspective with a kind of hierarchy of priorities, you might say. And to know that when you embrace the life force and it animates you, because I wouldn't worry about the chakras being shut down. In Kundalini Yoga, it is well known, also from a biochemical perspective, from whatever modern practitioners and stuff, that it involves a breakdown and a buildup. It's not just things being open and flowing all the time. I mean, when you practice Kundalini, you can look at the mirror and look 10 years older one day and 15 years younger the next day. your body goes through a tremendous back and forth of breaking things down, building things up. And I've been looking into there's a book by Robert O. Becker called The Body Electric. Very good book about and it connects cancer to the ability of some animals to regenerate in embryonic cells, and it has applications into society. But how long have we been discussing? How long have I been talking? Oh, and I've been monopolizing this mostly because I cannot hear anything you're saying. So let's see. We started. Is it about 30 minutes yet? Is it 20 minutes? It's past 20 minutes. 23 minutes. Okay, so we can still talk a little bit. This is an interesting thing, and this is still a half-baked idea, but I mentioned that you can look at psychopathy like cancer. So, and I also mentioned that when the body approaches cancer, what it does is it gobbles it up, basically. I mean, you have cancer cells coming out all the time. However, there are some animals like flatworms and salamanders that if you cut off their limbs, they will grow them back. If you cut off half a flatworm, it's going to grow back. This is the same regeneration dynamic that occurs when you break a bone. When you break a bone, some cells revert to embryonic cells, which are very similar to cancer cells, and then they revert again, put themselves together like an embryo grows, and then they revert again into bone cells. So you have a turning on of your cells and a turning off. If you turn on all of the genes that are immediately accessible in a cell, it turns into an embryonic cell. It goes back into the state of conception. If you turn them off again selectively, then it turns into a specialized cell. Basically, all the genes turned on is a regular cell of an embryo that's unspecialized, the first cell of your conception. And then if you just shut off a few accesses, it turns into a bone cell, a liver cell, a nerve cell, and all that. But if you take a cancer cell and put it into a salamander with its limb cut off, that's in a regenerative process, the cancer cells will not only be neutralized, they will turn into regeneration cells. They will transform into cells that are creating them. Even if they come from another animal, they will help create the new limb for the salamander. So it is possible to reverse psychopathy, but it involves something different than the matrix, because cells in a human body cannot do this. They're too specialized. It's like advanced civilization. Everybody has their specific jobs to do. However, a salamander's body is more general. It's like a primitive civilization or a primitive society where everybody hunts, everybody has some food growing in their backyard, everybody knits their clothing. So it's a more general dynamic, and it doesn't freak out through the difference between being specialized and going embryonic. That difference creates a shock, an alienation and a separation between the embryonic type cell and the specialized cell, and the embryonic cell just starts eating it up. It's the enemy, it's the foreign thing. So it feels trapped in a foreign organism that's enveloping, just like the psychopath feels like they're trapped in a universe that's some other living being separate from it, and they have to conquer it, or else they feel they will be consumed or whatever. So there are many parallels in manifestation to what's going on if we look at things organically and beyond the way that religion tells us, in my honest opinion. So I just wanted to add that, and I hope I might be able to expand on it in some way in a future conversation. But unfortunately, I couldn't hear what you were saying. The line on your end is still garbled for me. So, I kind of monopolized it after the end. Forgive me for that. But I think, we've talked enough for today, and I believe, again, okay. I believe that as you do your videos, again, if people look at everything you say, whether it's up or down or whatever, as a love line, because you keep talking about the love lines and they're a fantastic dynamic, and you have the same energy going through the videos. So people will greatly benefit from this, and that's a healing. That's where the healing comes in. If you're one of those new agers who has managed to just live in love and light, don't worry about anything, I say take up this challenge. If somebody there is willing to express something that is kind of filtered and civilized, because